right, I think we'll get started. All set online, Carly? Thank you for making that happen. All right, welcome to the Bear River Watershed Council meeting.
Yeah, she was busy up there.
The spring summer. We'll work on getting the next one. Or this discussion.
You want to get me right.
So big thank you. Able to come and for the patience in our efforts to get back here, grab some lunch, get things set up, and get this meeting going. I thank for everyone's participation and patience in that. So, I didn't see any minutes just proposed for approval, so we'll just jump right in to the. It's okay.
Come for the next one.
I think we'll have that taken care of next time. I just didn't want to miss it if it was. So, anyway, thanks again for coming, and we'll just jump right in. Back for everyone's time, we'll try to get things going and get our meeting through. Oh, an audio roll call? Sure. Okay, for everyone present in the room and online. Perfect. Okay. All right, we're going to go around the room, do an introduction just so that we have everyone's name correctly captured in the minutes for next time, or for the minutes this meeting and record for next time. So we'll start here, myself, and then we'll just go up that side, back down this side, and catch everyone in the back as we go around. So I'm Mark Hurd with the chairman for this time around, and with the High Park Irrigation Company for this time.
Sean Milne, secretary. Chance Baxter, vice chair, Bear River Water Conservancy District.
Jake Serago, hydrologist at the Division of Water Resources.
Beth Neilson, Utah State.
Tom Moore, Water Resources.
Mike Dunphy, U.S. Fish and Wildlife.
Linda Horn, Cardinal City Mayor. Ben Palmer, with Public Affairs Office.
Jim Burrito, Toronto Marine. Jim Boca, Utah Department of Agriculture, Food, Resident.
Stephen Griffin, Newton Water Users.
Alton Rigby, Utah Farm Bureau.
Lloyd Zingham, Box Elder County.
Stephanie McGinnis, Division of Water Resources. Record for you, Division of Water Resources.
Burdette Weston, Upper Bear River Water Users. Okay. As well as Neptune Early.
Eight Nap, Cash Water.
Dawson Clay, Cash Water District.
Megan Riley, Barry Robinson, Forestry Fire and State Land. Bessie Gamble, Forestry Fire and State Land.
Mark Scadden, Bear Lake Watch.
Carly Payne, Watershed Council's coordinator at the Division of Water Resources.
Perfect, thanks. I think we've got Trevor in the back and Al J is here. Al J Rigby is also here.
He was here. Yeah.
Oh, did you mention?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I said that. Okay, thanks everyone for getting that. A couple online. We've got, let's go ahead and speak up. We'll make sure audio is working well while we do this.
Yeah, Lucy Parm, Utah Division of Water Quality.
Stephanie, are you on?
I'm right here too.
Oh, yeah, you are. Sorry. Okay, and Jesse, are you on?
Hey, I'm here. Jesse Larson. I'm a watershed coordinator for UDAF.
Perfect. Yeah, I just see the three. Going on, so. All right, I think we got everybody. Thank you. We'll get through these the rules of order and get everything taken care of here. So to start off, Trevor, your first on the agenda. Trevor will grab the laptop and we'll start out there with a post-legislative session review. If you'll recall, Trevor provided us with a legislative preview, and so now we're going to talk about some of the things that we were of particular interest going into the last legislative session for the state of Utah, and get an update on how some things went there. And then after that, I'll just go through the rest of the agenda. This was sent out online, so should be the same as what was presented. We'll have an update or discussion, an overview of from the Logan River Observatory, as well as then a Great Salt Lake Basin integrated plan review, and then a couple of other business points after that. So, Trevor, send time over to you.
Sorry, we didn't know there were gonna be quite this many people, so we're all packed in here like sardines, but thank you for coming to Bear River Canal Company today and joining us. It was a little lower key session, but there still were a number of bills. So the first one is a House concurrent resolution regarding the Grand County Water Conservancy District. This is HCR1. It voices the state support of a pipeline pump station reservoir storage associated with water rights that had belonged to the U.S. Department of Energy concerning uranium refinement in Moab area. And that's going to be transferred to the district. And it's approximately 25,000 or 2,500 acre feet annually. Then the first actual bill is from Representative Albrecht and Senator Sandel, House Bill 141, and this is changes to state water policy amendments. This adds groundwater quality study and consideration for safe water and more flexible use, and then promotes the monitoring of activities in watersheds to provide better drinking water and to protect drinking water systems. And then it promotes the state water plan as kind of a fixture of how we operate, and then promotes reuse under appropriate conditions. So historically, reuse was not allowed in the Great Salt Lake Basin because of a change in the law a few years ago, and now it's allowed again, but under the right circumstances. So probably still fairly limited in the Great Salt Lake Basin, but some of the other basins, it's definitely going to be needed for them to continue forward. The next one is House Bill 46. This is a bit of a timing problem. They just more of a procedural issue that when a water right application was rejected, state engineer and the applicant both had 60 days, right, to address the issue, to both submit their request for it to be reheard, as well as for the state engineer to either approve or deny that request. So it's just a cleanup of making it so they had separate timelines that worked out better. The next one is House Bill 47, and this is public lands watering rights amendments by Albrecht and Senator Owens. This one has a little bit of history in the fact that, there we go. On BLM and on federal lands, they had these things called certificates that allowed for the grazers of those lands to be able to water off of some of the historical watering places. The program didn't work out as well as they hoped. It was mostly filed on by federal entities. And so it discontinues the program, and then it refines the program that replaced it so that if, say, the stock grazing is reduced, they're not open for forfeiture. And if the federal government decides they want to do a change application on those water rights, that person who has the BLM grazing permit also has to sign off on whatever change is made, making it so that you don't end up with a grazing right that has no water. Would you add anything to that, Farm Bureau back there? That's a pretty good synopsis. Okay. Then there was the fluoride bill, House Bill 81. This was already a federal law that went into effect. It doesn't allow fluoride in systems, and so it was just cleaning that up so that the state and federal laws matched. The next one was House Bill 89, a water transfer amendment. This bill, historically, you could do a small estate affidavit to clean up an estate if it had water shares in it in a canal company. And so if they didn't have their affairs in order, rather than having to go to probate, you could say my water shares are worth less than $100,000 and send in an affidavit, and it could be transferred to the heirs without having to go through probate. The problem that was being seen is that water has gone up in value so much that it was being abused and being used to transfer hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of water. The big issue that they ran into with the bill was they wanted to just kind of put some sideboards on it, but there isn't a appraiser in the state that will appraise just water rights. They always appraise it water rights as part of the ground. The reason is because water rights have different values for different uses. Same water drastically changes in value if it's being used for a culinary versus an agricultural setting. And so that's why they won't do it. And where you can't get it appraised, you can't show that it's worth less than $100,000. And so the law had to be changed so that we could be in compliance with the practices that were being seen. And so I was putting a particular Bear Canal company was putting us in a bad position where we knew people were kind of abusing the funds. So the next one is house.
change.
It makes it so you can't use the small estate affidavit. You have to, if you don't have your affairs in order and it's not clear who the heirs are supposed to be, you have to go to probate. And given the value, probate's about $5,000 to $6,000, but given the value of the water, it's actually not that expensive of an insurance policy to make sure that your cousins don't come back and try to take their water away from you making their claim on it. So the next one was House Bill 174. It's called the Water Rights Restricted Account by Albrecht and Senator Owens. This gives the state engineer additional flexibility in how they use their funds, particularly to allow them to use them for measurement devices and a few other things outside of a general adjudication, which is what it was used for before. The next one is House Bill 273, Agricultural Water Optimization Amendments. So this just made some small changes. It allows those funds, that big grant program, to fund some research. And then also, if people are willing to put in meters the year before they do the major improvement, they can get the meter paid for at 100%, and then the rest of the project paid for at 75%, so that the state can, they needed some data points to make better decisions on how the state water program will work. So the next one is Save Water Amendments. This was Snyder and McKay. So it requires secondary water systems to move to a tiered system. It just clarifies what the reasonable basis of when you establish water rates as a secondary or municipal provider, you have to kind of say that they're reasonable, to put some sideboards to kind of help that out. It allowed retail water users to incorporate water conservation in part of their rate structure, because there's this weird, when you conserve, they make less money. When they make less money, they can't pay for the improvements they've done that are typically bonded for or borrowed on loans. So they can include that component so that they can financially weather you delivering less water, if that makes sense. Let's see here. And then it also made a couple changes to the Board of Water Resources, so that there was more flexibility in the appointees there. Historically, they had to have half from one political party and half from the other. But where the state is predominantly of one party, they're running into problems finding qualified individuals from the minority party. And so they changed that up so that they put qualified individuals on that board. House Bill 311 is the next one, and it's called Watershed Amendments. This allows the state water agent to recommend construction projects. The state water agent is essentially somebody who negotiates with other states to try to import water into the state of Utah for different projects. It removes the limitation of the state water agent to negotiate, like they now can negotiate in the Colorado as well as the Bear. They were barred from doing that before because they have interstate compacts. And then It also inserted water commissioners. What I mean by water commissioners are the guys who are essentially the ditch riders of the rivers that deliver to the canal companies and municipalities. Those individuals have clarified that they are indeed state employees. The next one is 446, House Bill 446, Great Salt Lake Amendments. Let's see. It lays out the schedule for a lot of the studies that are required under some of the current legislation, as well as it moved the Great Salt Lake Commissioner from being a sub-cabinet position to in the Department of Natural Resources. It doesn't really change his role. It just helps with the hierarchy of who answers to who and the coordination of those things. I'm not super familiar with that bill. Did anyone else got any input on that? Okay. And then there was House Bill 468. It's called brine mining amendments. And so there's been a new development technology where they will punch down into kind of, we're talking really, really deep wells. Most of it's been out in the Uinta Basin, and they pull up the salty water that's found out there. A lot of it comes up with the oil as well. And they are looking at extracting the minerals out of that brine. In addition to that, there's some, I guess, there's a geothermal component to that as well, that they can pull up certain materials that are heated, and they use that to generate power. I don't understand that completely, but the basis of the bill was to kind of start the process of how you deal with brine that has never interacted with our surface waters before, because the state engineer has complete authority over the waters of the state. But this is kind of a new caveat. So this will be something that will develop over the next couple of sessions of what role does the state engineer play where we're pulling the water to the surface, and what role does the Board of Oil, Gas, and Mining have where it's been pulled up as part of a mining process. So we'll need to kind of keep an eye on that so that we make sure that that doesn't impair our water users. The next one is House Bill 520, Water Entity Amendments by Snyder and Brammer. It makes some changes to how the Utah Lake Authority interacts with the Division of Forestry, Fire, and State Lands. It also talks about changes it so that how the monies for the leases concerning the Great Salt Lake from now, well, my understanding is moving forward, there's going to be a board that kind of oversees that. That's a little bit different than it was before. Let's see. It does make a few changes to the Water Commissioner and the Colorado River Authority and some of their independent oversight requirements, as well as some coordination requirements for the water agent of the state with both the Great Salt Lake Commissioner and the Colorado River Authority. So now onto the Senate bill. Senate Bill 33, Water Recording Amendments. This is just another cleanup bill. If you were conveying, if you were conveying a water right to another person selling, traditionally has had to have a wet signature, physical signature. Now they can have an electronic signature. See, water fees amendments, which is Senate Bill 80. This allows the Department of Environmental Quality for the first time to be able to have fees for their services, which is something they've needed for a while, especially with some of the federal requirements that are coming down concerning water quality and those type of things that they haven't had fee making authority in the past. And so that allowed that to move forward. The next one is Senate Bill 36, Water Quality Board Amendments. Many times when the Water Quality Board, when the water quality decides to fine someone, so for instance, if they have a pollution release, there's there's a disagreement to how much the fine should be, because you're not allowed to discharge pollutants without proper permitting. And then once you have a permit with the limits of that permit. And traditionally, there's been some conflict in the amount of what the fine should be. And this allows an individual who disagrees with the fine that was assessed to be able to appeal that decision to the Water Quality Board and let them review it and see if it is appropriate. The idea is to try to keep some of these disagreements out of court and keep the costs down for both sides. Then there's Senate Bill 95, Transportation Amendments. This just requires certain municipalities to update their travel corridors and things like that. And the only thing it has to do with water is that they are required to coordinate with water facilities. So for instance, if UDOT, let's say Tremonton was going to put in a larger road through a certain area and needed to expand a bridge across Bear River Canal Company or add a bridge. When they included that in their master planning, they just needed to visit with in this example, Bear River Canal Company, about our plan is to put a bridge in here, and they start coordinating those things so they don't get into situations where UDOT comes in to expand a large highway or something like that, and those discussions haven't happened, and it ends up costing the taxpayers quite a bit more to sort it out with the private or public water suppliers. So then there's Senate Bill 220, which is called construction modifications. It really added some, it changed a few things with stormwater and how that was dealt with in the construction side of things as you're designing a building, developing. And so those are the bills that passed. There were a number that didn't pass. But I think I'd be outside of my time if I cover those. Are there any questions about the bills I talked about? Okay, sorry, that was kind of a word vomit, but there was a lot to go over in a short time.
Great, thank you, Trevor. And before you slide off to the back, thank you for hosting us. Grateful to have the space. Yeah, it's tight, crowded, but we're grateful that you could host us and for coordinating with chance to get lunch provided. We're keeping us up to date on legislative issues. So if there are any questions that come up, interrupt if they come to mind, and we'll jump to that. But with that, we'll keep things moving. We're on to overview of the USU Water Lab. Or the Logan River Lab.
Slides.
Okay.
I mean,
I think we can. There's another reach would be like, is there another connection for the TV? Let's see.
Or can I send you the link?
You can, it could be an internet connection too.
Ah. Yes. Just so people online can see that, that might be best. I think.
So you want me to just, you want to know before? Say this thing?
Well, so yeah, while Beth was getting set up here, we'll stop once she's ready to go, but I'd like part of this meeting, wanted to open it up to the floor about your thoughts of the tour we just had with Cutler Reservoir and any thoughts on future field trip opportunities like that, what you liked about the structure, what you would recommend maybe we focus on a little more for next time. So I'll just open it to the floor for feedback. Any thoughts?
Good tour.
What was that?
I said it was a good tour. I think for a lot of people, probably their first time over there. It's good to see that all water upstream on the Bear has to go through that little gap right there. That controls everything for most of the 500 whatever miles of the Bear River system. It's controlled right there. So there's a lot of management that has to happen there.
Yeah, I've been around, I've been on the hillsides above, but I've never been to the dam until today, and it's grateful for that firsthand experience. The format for the whole thing was mostly led by, the group from Utah State. We piggybacked on their, previously arranged tour, but, as far as how breaking up the groups, the chance to meet, mix and mingle, like that approach. Next time we do another tour, we're thinking about going out to see the operations at Bear Lake, and any other operations within our watershed that we would like to in the future. Obviously, the location will tailor a little bit about how we do things, but other feedback.
It was good to see the big picture of the whole. I know we were at Cutler Dam, which is the tail end, obviously, but Conley talked about all the other dams on Bear River as well as the importance of Bear Lake in the big picture. So it was very helpful to see the overall aspect of their infrastructure there on the Bear River, and then we talked a little bit about how they deal with 4 states from the Utah. I mean, we think Utah, but they're dealing with Wyoming, Idaho, and Utah. Yeah, those states. So how they coordinate with the 4 states. A lot of times they'll when they talk about that lake,
I'm trying.
sorry, you're fine.
Yeah, no, good.
It's not their problem in North Wyoming. The Great Salt Lake is not their problem.
I thought it was interesting to hear from some of the students and professors at Utah State, because they don't always come to the Watershed Council meeting. So it was interesting to hear about projects they're working on and how they're looking at trying to help with understanding and resolve issues for canal companies or the big picture issues. So that was beneficial.
Great. Yeah, thanks. That was the takeaway I had, was the opportunity to rub shoulders, if you will, with people focused in, project aspects from, in an academic setting, as well as people living it, with dynamics from this group. I felt like conversations I was a part of were productive because of multiple perspectives and stages of application through water use. Okay, any other thoughts? And
I will just say logistically, Mr. Chairman, next time I'll do a better job of coordinating with our hosts. I didn't mean to send out as many emails as I did this time around. You all undoubtedly caught that was a little abnormal. And then even last night, there was just that difference in agenda between the students and the fact that we all got pushed that email from the USU side, and it was a very different agenda. So I appreciated the grace that several of you in the room and on the tour today reached out yesterday in a bit of a panic, noting that there was a request for an earlier meeting time and that we were going to be outside until like 1-2 o'clock. So we just know next time to work in coordination a little bit tighter with USU. So thank you to everybody's patience and grace with the emails back and forth and quantity.
And additionally, just piggyback onto that to turn around and say, thank you, Sean, for coordinating all this and making it happen in the way that it did, and making sure the commission was formed. That was a bit of a challenging coordination effort for your efforts today. Also, maybe I'll just take this time to ask, how soon would this group be ready to take another tour? It would probably be more exciting, not that it wouldn't be exciting, but maybe even more exciting to see the Bear Lake operations in the next month while peak flows are up. And so we might try to get together coordinate that tour opportunity within the month of June. You guys feeling Watershed Council burnout already, or feel like that's a reasonable strategy?
Mr. Chairman, while people are wondering what to say, Connolly sent the leadership yesterday, the following is days available for next month. June 4th or 5th, 11th or 12th, 17th, 18th or 19th, or 24th or 26th. Noting that we normally don't meet that frequently every month, every month being frequent. And that the proposal, because of the high water level of which he recommends we go up there for a site visit, he's clearly trying to push us towards June because he thinks that's when we learn the most, see the most. And he suggests to us at least that the early part of the month is preferable to the latter, but we're sensitive again that we're holding, this meeting today. So are there any of those dates that don't work for individuals? Is this a doodle poll scenario with so many people in the room that we send out, try to get a quick response? But if we do that, I just need you to promise that you get a doodle response back fairly quickly so we can lock that down with him.
Seeing a lot of heads shaking, but no statements. So,
Read the date.
June 4th or 5th, 11th or 12th, 17th, 18th, or 19th, 24th, 26th.
I can make any of the 12, but the doodle poll would probably be good. I don't know all what you're trying to see on that tour, but I think I talked, can't remember, it's one of you. If we're over there for a tour and we can get the timing right, to go visit the Cutthroat catch station there on St. Charles Creek, maybe, whatever creek it is, which I think is similar timing. If you can coordinate that the same day, a pretty cool thing to see is some of the operations over there. So the earlier the better, I think, for the spawning Cutthroat.
What's that place called again? Cutthroat.
I guess
Fishing extravaganza.
we can contact, her name is Emily, yeah.
So,
Over that. It'd be pretty cool to see.
I think
We haven't
if
been
we
there
can,
before.
if we can pack as many things into that visit as possible, that would be in the scope and of interest for this body, we'd love to do that. But also very much recognizing that we've already kind of obligated half of your day today. And so targeting what is priority might be a part of that poll. Maybe we throw out, here's a few things we could look at, but if we had to narrow it down, we'll kind of structure a poll that way. But I also want to just stress, recognizing that for a lot of folks in this room, right now is your busy season, where the timing is important with weather patterns. So want to be considerate of that, but also make sure that we're doing the value add as this group we can. So please speak up.
It would be only a tour, no meeting.
I think we can probably pull that off.
Meeting tour.
We can probably just have some discussion points. If there's any real pressing items, we can work that in to a, kind of an on the fly meeting feel rather than tour and then come back like today's. And we had enough good agenda items. We wanted to do both today for sure. So.
Harley, we don't have any state expectations for what a meeting needs to constitute frequently.
You have to have an agenda, and it's supposed to be 4 times a year. That's pretty much the requirements. I know, at least at the Division of Water Resources, we are kicking off making the next state water plan, and that involves all the watershed councils. I know Stephanie's here to introduce herself today. Steph, do you need time on an official agenda in the future? What are you thinking?
We might be able to do that in June. I think though, if we don't have time today, I think probably kicking this off, maybe Carly at the discussion would share how we want to just kind of move forward right now.
If we do a tour, I can probably get Mark Smoot to let us use
Sunrise.
Thank you, Sunrise. Yeah, for the purposes of a boardroom, probably a little bit more room than this today, if we're going to have this many people. So it'd be really nice, view area, but just depends on what everybody wants, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy to coordinate accordingly. Today is our second meeting of the year. And so if we count the next one as an official meeting, we kind of get closer to checking off the requirements for the merit badge. And then even if we don't, I mean, Stephanie, you could, stand and give us a quick presentation like we had today on the edge of the operation. So you want me to put that out in the email, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, I think we'll do the poll. We'll get the dates out there in front of everybody so that you can check calendars and everything. But main thing for this conversation wrap up. If half the room said absolutely no, we can't do another tour that soon, we would maybe find a different time. But I think for the value add of the tour, it would mean either June or we put it off to next year, and we wouldn't have this tour, so close. So I'm getting the sense that we would be okay with the tour in June, and we'll just coordinate timing so that it's not necessarily as many things stacked together. So
By a show of hands, perhaps, as casual as this is, who is interested in a June tour of the Bear Lake Dam? Okay, yeah, there we go. Okay, thank you.
okay, thank you, and Beth, thank you for working through that and getting it set up. And so turn the time over to you. You know, step over here.
Thanks to Dick for helping me with my technical difficulties. Google Meets and me do not understand each other. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Beth Nielson. I know most of you in the room. I am the co-director of the Logan River Observatory. Those of you who don't know what that is, I'm going to just provide a real quick overview and then just provide some background information based on gauging infrastructure. I'm going to provide an update on the gauging infrastructure updates that are occurring in the Bear River Basin based on a larger statewide gap, not statewide, Great Salt Lake Basin-wide gap analysis that was completed last year, and that we've been in the process of trying to implement new infrastructure given the gap analysis for gauging infrastructure throughout the Great Salt Lake Basin. So first of all, there's a lot of people involved and a lot of entities involved. This has grown over the years. We're about 8 years into this at this point, where there was some infrastructure in the Logan River based on an NSF grant. That infrastructure, we didn't want to lose it. We're like, we should have a watershed that's well instrumented at Utah State. That has grown into the Logan River Observatory, and we are partnering both with the Division of Water Resources and now the Division of Water Rights, as well as Cashwater District in Logan City, and more recently Trout Unlimited, where we are continuing to grow the infrastructure we have to be able to do some research, ask some difficult questions about how do we manage these watersheds. The Logan has a very pristine upper part of the watershed in the mountainous area, and then it goes into, like all of our watersheds, into the valley where we move water around and distribute it everywhere, and that changes where water goes and how we manage it. Lots of students, lots of faculty, and just a lot of people involved. So the Logan River Observatory, and those of you who were in the runoff conference, I gave a bit of this information. Brand new station is right at the mouth of the confluence with Cutler. So we've expanded our stations from the top to the bottom. We have gauged most of the major tributaries. There's a couple of tributaries that are kind of intermittent that we don't have. So there's a lot of flow gauging stations, but we also have quite a few water quality stations. So those of you who are interested in temperature, dissolved oxygen, etc., we have that information at many of these locations. We are in the process of adding a number of stations due to some recent water rights investment to try to make sure that we have the gauging infrastructure we need to do both some research, but also ask some management questions. On top of that, we have some climate stations. One of the big questions that everybody's asking is, well, we had an average year in terms of snowpack. What's going on with runoff? Because our runoff so far this year has been quite low. The Blacksmith, I think, ended up peaking at like 200 CFS, so it's pretty disturbing when that happens. We are trying to expand our climate stations so we have a better understanding of what's happening. Can you see my mouse? Up here in Franklin Basin and at Beaver Mountain, we have stations. Then we have Tony Grove. We have a repeater. We also have something up in Temple Fork. We're hoping to make that a more permanent station. We just added a weather station at DeWitt as an intermediate kind of elevation at DeWitt Springs as an intermediate elevation. And then we have one down right between 6th and 10th West. So if you start adding on the Division of Water Rights diversion sites, and then also the USGS sites, we now have a really well monitored watershed. Because the Blacksmith Fork River is a tributary, we have also started expanding up the Blacksmith Fork. So we have the Blacksmith Fork at the confluence with the Logan River. For those of you who want to get into the details, we actually have an additional pressure transducer that we moved right by the soccer fields and park upstream because we were having backwater effects when the Logan gets high. And so we now have 2 stations there, which confuses people, but that's why. And we've expanded, so we have a station on Hollow Road, and then the USGS gauging station that's up there, which is one of the longest term gauging stations in the state, which is great. There's clearly a lot more of the Blacksmith that could be gauged. We're trying to minimize, well, we're trying to manage what we have in hand right now. In addition, well, as a way to look at this rather than through the watershed, Skylar's late. Hi, Skylar. As a way to as a way to look at this kind of more linearly, this is a very engineering way of thinking through things, but watersheds get confusing. I have every line that crosses the Logan River as a gauging station, whether it's an LRO gauging station or a USGS gauging station. Any orange line is actually a Division of Water Rights diversion location. We have updated all of the diversion infrastructure where we have now 15-minute data and a data logger at each of these locations. We worked with Aaron Hunt to do that, and it was a great collaboration. I'm going to see if I can move this. One of the most recent additions in the universe is the Little Logan River. So there's a couple, if I can get my screen to work now. We've added, these are all of our new sites. We have DeWitt Springs Overflow. We have the Logan River at 10th West and the Blacksmith Fork site I mentioned, and then Logan River above Cutler. The new station that Division of Water Rights just got online is the Little Logan Return. Not very many return flows are actually gauged, but this one now is, and this is right by the new water ski lake development. So it's right where Little Logan goes back into the river. We also have tried to figure out telemetry. It turns out getting data out of canyons is tricky, and we have finally got permits, and we have 2 new repeaters, so we're able to now get all of the data out of the middle of the canyon, and so we'll have all of these sites real time very soon. So to expand on this, we started adding a couple more sites outside of the Logan River watershed. That includes the Little Bear River and the Spring Creek adjacent to the Little Bear River, right again above where they enter Cutler as a way to, we're going to start scaring the heck out of Cutler Reservoir because we're now starting to gauge everything that ends up going into Cutler. We started working with the USGS, and they are adding 2 new sites, and that's the Cub River and Summit Creek. They should be in next week, which is awesome. So, and those are right before they go into the Bear. And then to zoom right back out to give you the whole kind of Bear River watershed perspective, they've also added, and it's currently active, the Bear River at Smithfield. So that old site is now reactivated and it is online. And they have a rating curve there that they're an older rating curve that they're using so that you should be able to get real-time data now. In addition, with this funding from water rights, we are now going to be able to, we picked up the Little Bear River at Paradise to continue funding that by the USGS, and then the Bear River at Corinne. Because one of the things that has changed is that the Fish and Wildlife Service are going to start paying for a gauge closer to the Bear River Bird Refuge, and they were no longer going to fund Corinne. So that made it so there was a need to pick up the Corinne funding, and that's something that Water Rights has picked up. So if we look at this collectively, you can now see that we have pretty much gauged most of the inflows relatively well to Cutler Reservoir. And this was part of the reason why these gauges got funded, was because Conley really requested, he said, I would be able to do my job better if I had a better understanding of what's coming from each of these tributaries. And so he was good at requesting that. And then Water Rights was very good at ensuring that we had a better understanding of what's happening in the Bear River because of its importance. As part of the Logan River Observatory, we deal with data management and distribution. And one of the things that we have is our data are freely available on the Logan River Observatory website, of which I will give to you in a minute. We have tools where you can plot different time series. You can plot the duration of the time series. This shows 3 different sites: Franklin Basin, the Water Lab, and Menden Road. So you can see how it changes over time, but also over space. And you can very clearly see the effects of diversions during certain times of the year. But we are in the process of updating the interface to all of these data. So our website is currently going to be a little messier than normal because we have transitioned all of our data to a new database, and we're now providing new tools. So, but within the next month or so, we should have everything kind of, I think, a much more friendly version of the LRO data that you can access. If anybody between now and then wants information and you can't get it, you send me an email and we'll make sure that we get it to you. So one of the things that we've tried to figure out is on our website, what data could we provide very quickly that would make it so you as a water user or as a water manager could actually go to our website and immediately get information that you need without having to click around and plot time series, etc. So what would be useful to you? So this QR code here, if you guys want to take a picture of this, you could provide us information on the type of data that you want readily available on our website, because we're going to basically have some links where you can click on it and it will plot 5 different stations along the Logan, and you'll see the last 5 days of data or the last day of data. And you can kind of sequence through it, because one of the tricks is it's great to have access to data, but if you have to click 100 times to get to that information, at some point you're like, it's not worth it. And one of my tests is what websites do I go to look at data quickly? And I realized it wasn't our website. I would look at a USGS gauging website right upstream of one of ours. And I'm like, if I'm doing that, then everybody's doing that. So I'm trying to help fix my own problems and yours by making sure that we have our data as accessible as possible. As a side note, and this is going to be hard to see because I'm sure up on that screen, can you see those red lines?
Mm-hmm.
I am providing some insight into work Larry Spangler at the USGS, and he's no longer with USGS. He's retired, but he continues to do this work. And these are tracer studies in the Logan. And the reason why I thought that this might be useful is because in the Logan, everything that lands in the Logan doesn't stay in the Logan. In fact, a lot of water that lands in the Logan is exported to other watersheds. Part of it is exported to the Cub River, but a really important part of this is that a lot of the Beaver Creek watershed, which is a very large watershed at the upper part of the basin that gets a lot of snow, a lot of that ends up going to Bear Lake. So Bear Lake is benefiting, and the Bear River system is benefiting from what happens in the Logan kind of entirely. The traces that are probably of most interest are the north, middle, and south sink. These all go to Swan Creek Spring and Booth Spring. So that's when you drive over the canyon, you get a false flat before you go into the last one. Those are the sinks. Those are those 3 sinks where there's no water, there's no nothing. But anything that lands there basically goes into sinkholes and very quickly shows up at these springs on the other side of the mountain near Bear Lake. One of the most surprising traces that was done last summer, and one of my students, Hiram Tennant, has been working with Larry on this, is that Sink Hollow, for those of you who don't know what Sink Hollow is, you go up to Beaver Mountain, instead of going to Beaver Mountain, you kind of go up the road and you go this direction towards Beaver Creek Road, and then there's this trail that goes off in the middle. There's a small drainage in there, and I should have put a picture of how much that thing can run. That drainage runs every spring, but it runs right into a wall and into a huge sinkhole. And I kept thinking this has got to show up somewhere. And there's lots of springs that I kind of thought it would show up at, but nope, it showed up at Swan Creek Spring. So we're pouring water for some perspective. Oh, I forgot this is in the blur. I think that's this injection. It's traveling all the way over here. So the thing about karst, and this is what the geology in the Logan and in much of the Bear River Basin is, where water falls and where water melts does not necessarily mean that it's going to go where you think it's going to go. And I think that there's a lot of potential work like this that could be done kind of throughout the Bear River Range to help better understand what water from what locations is going to different springs. There's a whole bunch of other traces in here. There's a bunch up in Franklin Basin here. There is a bunch in here where we've got things going to Rick Springs and down to DeWitt Springs. A lot of the springs, which is what the Logan River is, are fed by very high elevation snow directly rather than overland flow or what gets kind of collected through the river system. So with that, I will take any questions, comments, and please take the survey and provide any feedback that you can. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious, when you said there was a scary part about knowing what amount of flows and where they're flowing from and where they're going to.
Mm-hmm.
What's the scary part?
Well, I think that sometimes what we see in terms of a drainage system, we feel like we can predict what happens. But with some of these connections, if you think about some of the off-road vehicles, big sinkholes, that those connect to our drinking water sources. And they connect very quickly. We're talking weeks, sometimes less. So it's not like you wait a year and it shows up. Some of you will pick up dye usually within a month. And that's like I think it's actually quicker than that, but that's just when we first pick up. This is a very kind of crude method for doing this. The river, we've shown repeatedly that it actually turns over. We lose water to, and I'll just say to the bedrock, but then we gain it back repeatedly as you go through the Logan. Some of the scary part is we take 18 wheelers full of gas, and how many times do we see trucks in that river and cars? I mean, it's a kind of a dangerous canyon. So some of the connectedness that's unexpected, I think that's where it gets a little bit scary, and there's some unpredictableness of it all. Anything else? Do y'all want to go do dye studies now? Anytime you see a creek that disappears, that's what we should do. All right, thank you
Okay.
guys.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Beth. Appreciate that presentation, and I encourage everybody to take the survey.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Okay, let's see. With that, I think we'll jump right to Jake. You ready to go on a Great Salt Lake Basin integrated plan overview?
Okay, thank you. So we've been here before to talk to the council about the Great Salt Lake Basin integrated plan that's going on. This is funded partially by the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation and partially by the Utah legislature. So there are a few challenges in surrounding Great Salt Lake, in case you haven't heard. There are also challenges for most water users throughout the basin. Trevor was just telling me how I was asking him about rainfall here, because in Salt Lake we had this beautiful day and a half solid rain. It's really great for all my plants. So I was asking him, how much rain you got up here. He said nothing, and that they could really use it because users, even though they're running full right now from Cutler, we just saw there are some users at the end of the line that are having trouble pulling enough water to irrigate. So everyone has challenges, if you go through and talk. And here in Utah, we do a really, really good job at meeting those challenges, particularly, individual systems. We talked about Hyde Park, Canal, Bear River Water Conservancy District is really good addressing the water challenges and water problems. It's really hard for all these different groups to see the big picture. And what happens is results or effects of the big picture, you know, coming down to wetlands around the lake or around Great Salt Lake and dust issues, those become a huge political issue that then can threaten the life of migratory birds, you know, large scale ecosystems, effects that none of us would want but are difficult to foresee. They may even affect the way that we manage water up in the basin with threats of lawsuits and other things coming in to get us. So one of the solutions that we see is by going through a planning effort to involve folks who use water, who plan for water, who manage or are impacted by water policy to help influence the way that water is managed and we address our challenges. Regarding Great Salt Lake, you may have heard Director Steed, Commissioner Steed, or others say that we are attempting to build this airplane while we're flying it. In other words, like we're living through this challenge and trying to deal with issues surrounding the lake and other water resources, but we're also building the plane as we're flying it. If that seemed kind of like an impossible task, I would also add that we don't even have blueprints for what the plane looks like, and we're trying to build it. So the whole point of the Great Salt Lake Basin Integrated Plan is to develop those blueprints so we have a plan, so we know what to expect, what to do in the next 20 years, 50 years, 100 years. So part of that process involves meetings like this, workshops, and things like that. Another piece is developing the right tool to help us get the big picture. So in our office, we've been working on putting together that tool, and this is a little picture of it. So I sent this out to the Watershed Council. I don't know if I got email addresses for everyone, so I'd like to verify that we get good email addresses so that when we send out communications that you all can get those. We can send out this image. We could also print them off for you guys, but this gives this doesn't get down into a lot of the weeds and detail that a lot of you work in or care about, but it does help to get the big picture by including all of the major water users and the major components of the hydraulic system. And so you can see it starts down here on my shoe, up at the Wyoming state line, coming out of the Uintas, and then we have all the major reservoirs, major canals. We don't have return flows in here yet, but we'll work on putting those in. And even if we don't know where they are, we put them in because they're real. We just don't know where they are. And we have to make a lot of assumptions to make this happen. We indicate where we have gauge stations so that we have known information. And eventually, you get down to Cache Valley, it gets kind of complicated, and then down to eventually flows into Great Salt Lake. So we printed this out. I'm going to throw it on the back table in that room and have pens so you can look at it, mark it up if there's things that you see are wrong or things that you notice that aren't included or should be. The bird refuge isn't on there, but I talked to Jaron. So and so just to give you kind of a picture of getting the big picture and why this may not have all the detail you're looking at, we have one of these for the Weber River Basin. We have one of these for the Jordan River Basin. We have one of these for the Utah Lake Basin. And we also are working on one of these for all of the wetlands and Great Salt Lake. So it's a big undertaking, but eventually we'll have this. From this, we can build a model to help us look at all kinds of future. We could look at future climates, which you can't really get a good idea of right now. and we can look at all kinds of things that would be really expensive or impossible to implement. We could put them in here and see, what does that do? You know, does that help solve any problems? Does it solve some but create new problems elsewhere? Would it be really costly for one person or one group? And so we can pull all that information in as we develop a plan to get everyone on board, and that plan eventually goes up to inform policy at the highest levels. Questions?
Can you clarify quickly? So this schematic is supposed to just include where water goes, is like just to help provide a little bit of background of what the schematic should or could include and what people can provide feedback on.
Yeah. So the main thing that we want to show are the most significant supplies, water supply sources, surface water sources. We also have, there are icons, the orange icons indicate groundwater source or groundwater withdrawal. So we're looking at the major sources, and as well as the major water demands and conveyances. Okay. I got some, some of you guys call it Burdett. Calling me, said, you called me, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I told you where to go on the site to put all the canals on.
Yeah. So we've got some feedback. It's really helpful for us because, we do our best to talk to people, to read existing studies, check existing maps, and get this picture. But really, it's folks like you who can help us get this right. So, okay.
Thanks, Jake. And again, thank you, Beth, for the presentations. So we kind of went over most of the business points that I had intended to bring up at this part in the agenda. So I kind of thought we'd just start with the open floor. Any other relevant, timely thoughts from this group as far as conditions, needs, things going on in the Bear River watershed? Everything's business as usual. Everybody's got plenty of water. Okay. Since he's standing, I'll ask Skylar if there's anything related to water rights that we ought to bring up with a group such as this.
There might be some, what are they, the water shepherding to the Great Salt Lake applications in the area. So there's been a few that have been drafted. I haven't seen any of them come back yet, but I think in the next month or so.
So you're talking about leases?
Leasing. Yeah,
Water leasing. Water banking discussion. Okay.
Yeah. So that we should be seeing some of those. I'm trying to think what else. I don't think there's anything too large happening. With the governor's proclamation, it's pretty tied down for what you can apply for. So I don't think there's anything too major happening.
How long is that going to stay closed?
As far as I know, until I hear otherwise. So I think it will stay in place until maybe we even get out and revisit some of the policies that we have out there. I mean, like Cache Valley, people were upset about, but actually Cache Valley's policy was more restrictive than the governor's proclamation, and so it didn't affect people, but they thought it did. But I think it will stay in place for the foreseeable future.
Just kind of on that note, so the Hyde Park Irrigation Company has got a new meter going in for this season. It will be the first on our flow to measure in stream after our diversion from what we're pulling out of the Little Logan River. And our situation is somewhat unique in that we are one of the two twin canals through Logan. And so our flow after the diversion from the Logan is shared. We take from the same diversion and then we parallel, but go through a couple of phases of merging the flows and then separating them again with control gates and stuff. And without a meter, it's tough to balance whether that the correct water right is going down the right channel. And so we're excited about that opportunity, and that was through the water rights, and they Was it that, did we use the optimization grant or did we?
No, it's through automation. There was money given to water rights to help with measurement. So if you think you have a measurement need and you could use help, you can contact Aaron Hunt from our office, and it's to help measure within the Great Salt Lake Basin, also the Colorado, but we're concerned about the Great Salt Lake Basin, which the whole Bear River is, and you can get help funding measurement devices.
You know, this being our first meter on our line, we're excited to see how that goes, what we can learn. And then I already have in mind a couple of spots we would certainly like one. If we can ensure we get water all the way to the tail end, there would be measurable inflow back into, our point would tie into the Basin and then tie into the Bear River and all that. But we would have the ability to track that water flow as it works its way north and east, which seems like it shouldn't happen. But you can't flow water uphill, but it looks like we do. Anyway, okay, thanks for letting me put you on the spot on that.
Oh yeah, no worries.
Okay. Anything I've missed, Mr. Secretary?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, one last appeal to anyone for comments they would like to share with the group. Actually, I just thought of one I should have asked Darren. Anything from the wildlife, the bird refuge that we should include in a conversation like today?
Nothing off the top of my head.
Okay, great. Thank you for being here. Okay, with that, we'll get the information out about the potential June tour of the Bear Lake operations and convene at whatever time that leads us to. So, thank you again for letting us occupy so much of your day. Hopefully it was useful in the big picture of the mission and opportunities of this Watershed Council. I'm incredibly grateful for the participation and the presentations and the flexibility as we work through it. So thanks again for coming. We'll take a chance to look at the map or the schematic that Jake had, and then feel free to depart when ready. Thanks, Carter. Thanks everyone online.